Hi, good morning, everyone. So first of all, I'll give an introduction about myself. First of all, I would like to thank Data Science Conference for giving me this opportunity to present my tutorial. So I am Amir Siddiqui. I am a data scientist at Aureus Analytics, Mumbai, India. I also have a YouTube channel and its name is StatsFire, where I mainly make videos about the data science, machine learning, AI, deep learning, and more. And in this tutorial, we will learn about this image segmentation using TensorFlow. So I will display how we can do the image segmentation using TensorFlow in Python. The agenda of this tech tutorial is we will learn what is TensorFlow, what is image segmentation, convolutional neural network architecture, and we will also see the architecture of UNet. And then we will.
Amir, sorry to interrupt you. Good morning. Actually, we don't see anything. It's just black here, and the panel is overlaying the presentation. So maybe you can fix it.
Okay, sure. I'll just stop and share once again.
Thanks.
Sure. Sorry for the problem.
Yeah, that's perfect now. Thank you.
Okay, you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I was talking about the agenda, and the agenda is we will learn about the TensorFlow, what is image segmentation, convolutional neural network, and we will also learn about the UNet architecture, and then we will go to the Jupyter Notebook to see the image segmentation code. I'll just give you a very brief description about the TensorFlow. So what is TensorFlow? TensorFlow is an end-to-end open source platform for machine learning. It has a comprehensive, flexible tool libraries and community resources that lets researcher to make the state-of-the-art machine learning and deep learning codes, and you can also deploy it. And it is very easy for model building, and it is robust for the production. You can put it on production. It is very powerful for experimentation, for research. This can be done by students and professionals. Here we will see what is image segmentation. So in image processing, we have three kinds of problem. We have object detection, semantic segmentation, and instance segmentation. So first we will see what is object detection. So it is a computer vision techniques that allow us to identify and locate objects in the image or video. If you see at this first picture, so you will see there are many person in this image, and it is just detecting that there are person in this image. We are getting a rectangular box here. Then we have this semantic segmentation, and it is different from the object detection because in semantic segmentation, it is the process of classifying each pixel belonging to the person and the background. So here we are not detecting an object, we are detecting the entire image here. So this pixels, so all this person, we have this pixel, and we have the pixel for the background, which is in black color. Then we have instance segmentation. So it is different from semantic segmentation in the sense that it gives unique label to every instance of a particular object in the image. And here we will see we are getting pixel, as well as it is also giving the label to each person. We have person 1, person 2, person 3, and so on. So this is the difference between the image segmentation and the semantic segmentation. Then in this slide, you will see, because we are going to work on the image segmentation, I will show you what is the difference between the two, the image and the segmentation. So we will have the actual picture. This is the actual image of the cat, and then we have the mask of that cat. So this is the pixel. We are going to detect this pixel, and based on this pixel, it will classify whether it is a cat or dog or any other animal. Next, we are going to see what is convolutional neural network, because whenever we are working on the image segmentation problem, it always involves CNN, and to get basic idea of CNN, it is good to have. So this is the architecture of CNN. we have the input image, then we are performing some steps like convolutional, plus we are applying the activation function, that is ReLU, then pooling, then we are again applying the convolutional pooling, and then we have flatten and fully connected layer and softmax. The question is, why do we need CNN at the first place? So we need CNN because our raw images are very big in size. We have 5 MB, 10 MB, 15 MB, and so on. So we cannot pass the raw image to our model because it will take a lot of computation time, because we all have different images of different size. So that is not possible. That's where the CNN come. It actually minimizes the size of the picture by extracting the important information from the picture. So it keeps all the relevant information, and it also reduces the size of the image so that we can pass that image to our artificial neural network model, and we can then classify it whether it is a cat or dog or human or etc. based on the problem statement. So in this CNN, first we have this input image, we pass the raw image, then we have this convolutional, plus we apply the activation function. So it is nothing but the kernel, and it is also known as a filter, and it helps us to extract relevant features from the images by diminishing the size of the image. Then we go to the next step, that is the padding. So what happens, we have, for example, we have this matrix here, and you will see at the end we have 0, 0 everywhere on the left, right, and bottom. So when we apply a stride on this padding, it will take into consideration these number. For example, we apply this filter here, 1, 0, 0, and 0.5. Then we will move this filter to the next column. This will be 0, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 1. This is how we move the filter from one place to another, from left to right. But what happens, this filter will move to this 0 more than once, because first it will be here in this block where we will have these 4 numbers. Then we will move this filter to the next block where we will get this 0 again. Then we will move it to here and so on. But the numbers that are on the left or on the right side and the bottom side, they get only one chance to come in this filter. And that's where we apply this padding. So in padding, what we do, we give 0 to all the places at the top, at the bottom, at the left, and on the right side. So this helps us to get all these numbers coming in the filter more than once. So this is the purpose of padding. To get these features more than once, we apply padding. So there are different types of padding, 0 padding and all. We are applying the 0 padding, so we can get this feature number 1 more than once in this filter. Then we have this pooling. So what is stride? Whenever we move this filter across this matrix from left to right or from top to bottom, this is known as stride. Then we have pooling. So we get this, after applying this padding, we get a matrix here. And once we get this matrix, we apply the pooling. Pooling are of 2 types. We have the max pooling and the average pooling. So when we apply the max pooling, for example, here, if you apply the max pooling, it will pick the maximum number. So here in this, we have the maximum number is 20. So it will pick 20 from here. Then from this matrix, the maximum number is 30. It will pick 30. From this matrix, the maximum number is 112. It will pick 112. And in this matrix, the maximum number is 37. It will pick 37. So there are 2 kinds of pooling. We have max pooling, where it will pick the maximum number from our matrix. Then we have average pooling. So in this, it will take out the average of these 4 numbers and put it here. Similarly, it will do for this next matrix and this one, and it will put the numbers here. So pooling helps us to reduce the image size, and by keeping all the relevant information, so then we can pass it to the next level. Once we apply this convolutional plus value activation, then we apply this pooling. So here what we are doing is we are applying the filter. That is, here we are doing this filter here. Then next step is pooling. So we are doing pooling here. Again, we apply this same to reduce the size of the image. Then again, we apply the pooling. Once we have reduced the size of the image, the next step is flatten. because we get a feature map, and in that we have all the relevant information for our images. So we flatten that map and make it one dimensional, because we cannot pass more than one dimensional data. So we flatten it and then we pass it to the artificial neural network, and which is a fully connected network. And then we apply a softmax function, because if we are having only two categories, then we will apply this one. So this is how this CNN works. It will compress your images from your original size to the least possible size by keeping all the relevant information. Next, we will understand the U-Net architecture. U-Net architecture is similar to the CNN, but it is kind of more advanced form. So this is the architecture of U-Net, and this was basically made for the biomedical image segmentation. This is called U-Net because you will see that the shape of this architecture is U-shape, and it has two paths. We have the path on the right side, and we also have the path on the left side. The path on the left side is known as contraction or the encoder. The path on the right side is known as expansion or the decoder. So here what we do, we input the image file here. For example, our image file is 572 by 572. Then we have these channels, or it is also known as filters, 164, 64. So once we pass our input image here, then we apply here two convolutional neural layers. After that, we apply this max pooling. So the one here you will see in brown color, this is max pooling. Then we again apply the convolutional layer. So here you will notice that the original size of our image is 572 by 572. After applying the convolutional layer and the activation function, that is 3 by 3, here it is written, convolutional 3 by 3, and the activation is value. The image size decreases to 284. Then we again apply the convolutional layer and the ReLU activation form. Then the image size becomes 140. We again apply the same convolutional layer and the ReLU activation. Image size becomes 68, then 62, 66, and then 32, and then 30. So from this file of 572, the image size comes here and it becomes 30 here. Then it goes to this decoder path, and this is kind of upsampling. Here we are reducing the image size, but when this will go to this side, it will increase the image size, and here it will perform the concatenation. So it will get the information from this encoder and then concatenate it, and then it will go to the output segmentation map. So here it is doing upsampling, and here instead of this 5 by 12, for example, we are taking here 5 by 12 as a channel. So this will gets double here. So we will have 5 by 12 plus 5 by 12, 104. See, all this channel will get double on this decoder path. So this will become 1024. Then we have this 5112 for this 256. For this 128, we have 256. And for this 64, we have 128. And for this one, we have 2. So when it goes to the decoder path, it gets upsampling. And this is how this U-Net architecture works. It is the more advanced form, and it is specially used for the image segmentation. And because we are doing image segmentation, we use U-Net. Here we cannot use the conventional CNN, because that is that we can use in the object detection or other problems. Now we will go to the Jupyter Notebook and see the code. So this is our Jupyter Notebook, and here I have the code from this image segmentation. As I have told you about the image segmentation, it is the classification task, and it will assign the label to each input image. And suppose you want to know the shape of the object, which pixel belongs to which objects, and etc. We use image segmentation. So this is more about the pixels. We are working on the pixels, not on the object. And about this tutorial, so we are going to use this Oxford PET dataset created by Parkey et al. The dataset consists of images of 37 PET breeds with 200 images per breed. And each image includes the corresponding labels and pixel-wise masks. The masks are class labels for each pixels. So we have mask here, and they are the class labels. Each pixel is given one of the three categories. So we have three classes here: class 1, class 2, and class 3. We have to classify whether it belongs to, the mask belongs to class 1 or class 2 or class 3. In class 1, we have pixel belonging to the pet. In class 2, pixel is bordering the pet. And the class 3 is none of the above or the surrounding pixel. So we can also have a look at the data set if we want. So this is the data set here. If you come on this page, you will get the overview of data set. We have pictures of cats and dogs here. And here you will get the data set statistics. It is taking some time to load. But you can come on this page and you can look at the statistics of the data set. It will tell you how many picture belongs to the cats and dogs. And if I come back to the Jupyter Notebook and I'll show you the code. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I think I've got some network issues. I'm sorry for that. So this is the code, and here in this first line, we are downloading the examples from the GitHub. So this first line will download the examples that we are having in the TensorFlow on GitHub page. The next is we are importing all the important libraries that we need to work on this image segmentation problem. So we are importing TensorFlow, Matplotlib to make data visualization here. Then from dataset, we are importing the dataset module so we can load that pet dataset. And we are importing this pre-processing, clear output, and everything that we will require for this tutorial. Here in the next step, we are loading the dataset. And once we load the dataset, we can look at the information. So this dataset is a dictionary. It has training data and test dataset. So you will see this is our key, train and test. We have some information about the training files such as the file name, image, and the segmentation mark. Similarly, we have for this test one. So you can get the information using this method get, and here you will see the information about the trained data set. Here you will see the information about the test data set in the next slide. And to get more information, you will type info. You will get all the information about this data set. So we have this data set from the Oxford PET data set, and it has 37 category PET images. And next here, we are defining a normalize function because we are going to normalize our data set, and also we are going to make it float. So here you will see the maximum number of our image size is 255. So we are dividing this by 255.0 because we want to convert it into float. That is why here we are using this 0.0. And here it is given about the labels. So we have label 1 to 3, but for the sake of convenience, we are subtracting 1 from the segmentation mask, and then our new labels will be 0, 1, and 2 instead of the 1, 2, and 3. The next function we are defining here, and this function will help us to load the image. So we will load the image using this function load underscore image, and we will have this input image and input marks. We will have two things here, the actual image and the mask, because we are more interested in the pixel and the pixels are in the mask. So we will have these two variables, input mask and input image here. And we are defining the size of the image. So our image size is 128 by 128. And this using this function, we will load the image. Next is we are going to define our batch size and the training length. So this data set is already split into train and test. And so we don't need to do the training and splitting here. We can directly continue. And here in this train underscore length, I am getting the information of the training data set. And then I'm using this information and saving this in this variable train underscore length. Then I'm defining the batch size. Batch size is 64. That means I will be using 64 examples. Then I have this buffer size. It is related to random sampling. Then we have this steps per epoch. So this is nothing but the training length divided by the batch size. So whatever the result will be, that will be the steps for our epoch. Then in the next line, we are defining this two variable, train images and test images. In train images, we will have all the training data set, and we are getting this training data set from this tf.data.experimental.autotune, and we are using this train from this variable data set, and we are mapping it with this load image and the number of parallel calls. Similarly, we are doing this for the test images. Now, when you call this train images, you will get the information that you have this parallel map data set. In this, we have a data set, and the image size is 128 by 128 and 3. 3 means it is RGB. The image is color. That is why we are using 3. RGB stands for red, gray, and blue. Red, green, and blue. Then we have this class. We are defining a class here. This is to create a data augmentation class. And this class will help us to change the shape of our image. So we are going to make this image horizontal shape. That is why we are using this augment class. And we are defining one function here call. So we will call this input and labels. Then this function will return us the inputs and the label. Then next we are building the pipeline for the applying the data augmentation. So here we are creating a pipeline. We have this variable train underscore batches. In this, we are performing this, we are passing this train underscore images. So in this, we have all the training images, and then we are passing some other parameters such as cache, shuffle, batch, repeat, map, augment, prefetch. So batch size we have already defined above. So in this parameter batch, we are just passing that batch number here. These are some of the parameters that we are defining to create a pipeline for the pipeline for the data augmentation. Then we are doing this for the test batch also, and we are getting all the images from the test images and saving it in this object test_batches. Next, we are creating a function, and this function will display the images. So this function will have our input images and true mask. When we will call this function, you will see the input images as well as the mask of that image. And we are going to apply this function to look at some of the images from the training data set. So here we have a training data set, and here you will see I am running a for loop here, and I'm saying that I want to look at the 3 examples from this training batches. So in this training batches, we are looking at 3 examples, and then we are saving this into 2 variables, sample image and the sample mask. And this will display a sample image and sample mask here. And you will see our first image is of dog. So this is the input image, the actual image, and then this is the mask image of this dog. And as I have said, I want to look at 3 images. So we will get here 3. This is for the second one. We also have this image for dog, and this is the true mask of that dog. And this is the third image. So this is the image of dog, and we are getting the true mask of the dog image. So this is a pixel that we are going to classify in this. Now we are going to define the model, and the model being used here is the modified version of this unit that I have told you in the slide, the architecture of unit. A unit consists of encoder, downsampler, and decoder upsampler. And in order to learn robust features and reduce the number of trainable parameters in this model, we will use the MobileNet version 2 as the encoder. And for the decoder, we will use the upsample block. So here we are creating a base model. I'm creating a variable base underscore model. And from this Keras, I'm calling this MobileNet v2 because it has pre-trained model. And then I'm defining the input shape of our images. So our images are of 128 by 128 and 3 because they are color images. So that is by 3. And then here I'm defining these layers. So this is the layer, and this is for the encoder. We are reducing the image size. So we have this from 64 by 64 to 32 by 32, then 16 by 16, 8 by 8, and 4 by 4. Then we are creating this feature extraction model and saving it this variable down underscore stack. And then we will use this. Here I'm creating an upsampler. This will increase the image size. So from 8 by 8, it will go to 16 by 16, then 32 by 32, and 64 by 64. Here you will see we are just downsampling from 64. We are coming to 4 by 4. And here we are going from 8 by 8 to 64 by 64. Then I'm defining a unit model here. And this model will help us to make this image segmentation problem. So I'm defining this function unit underscore model, and then I'm passing this output channel here. So in our input, we will have this input layer, and we will pass the shape of the image. So input, we are passing the shape of the image 128 by 128 and 3 channels. Then we are downsampling this. So we are passing this parameter skip, and here also we are passing this skip. Then in the next step, we are upsampling that because as I have told you in the unit structure that it is going from this downsampling to the upsampling part. So we are done upsampling it. Then this is the last layer of the model where we are defining the convolutional layers and also applying the filters here. So our kernel size is 3 and we are applying a stride of 2 by 2. The padding is same. We have different types of padding here and we are using the padding same here. And then this will return us, this function will return us the Keras model. Next, we have to train the model. And before we train the model, we have to compile it. So in this step, we will compile the model. And since this is a multi-class classification problem, because we are having here more than 2 classes, if we have only 2 classes, then it is a binary problem. But if it is a multi-class, if we have more than 2 class, then it is a multi-class problem. And in that case, we use categorical cross entropy as our evaluation matrix, and logits is equal to true. This will give us the probability. Then we will use this losses dot sparse categorical cross entropy, since the labels are scalar integer and instead of vectors. Then we will run this inference and we will get the model. So we will create this. So here we will compile the model here, and here we will define the classes because we are having 3 classes as I have shown you earlier. I'll show you here. So we have 3 classes here. Class 1 belonging to pixel belonging to the pet, class 2 pixel bordering the pet, and class 3 is none of the above or surrounding the pixel. So in the compilation of model, we are defining those 3 classes here. Then we are making one variable model, and then we are calling that unit model function that we have defined above. And then here we are passing the channels. So in channels, we are passing this variable output classes, that is 3 here. Then here we are compiling the model, and here we are defining some parameters such as the optimizer. Our optimizer is Adam. There are different optimizers, but we are using Adam because this gives better results. Then we are defining the categorical cross entropy, and from logits is equal to true because we want to get the probabilities, and the matrix will be accuracy here. And then I'm creating this mask function. So this will give us the mask of our true images. And this function will show us the prediction. So this, I'm defining a function here, show prediction. And using this function, once we train our model, we can look at the predictions. So if I call this show predictions, we will get this input image, the actual mask of that image, and the predicted mask here. So this is the predicted mask. Then I'm defining one class display callback, and this class display callback is used to observe how the model improves while it is training. So when the model is training, we will see the accuracy of the model, and we will come to know whether the accuracy is increasing or not. And then finally here we are fitting the model. So here we are defining epochs is equal to 1. You can increase this epoch to get more accuracy, and it will take time. If I run this model with epoch 1, then it will run in a very short time. But if you increase the number of epoch, it will train a lot of time to train the model, but it will also help you to get better accuracy. Your accuracy will improve as the number of epochs will improve. And then we have this validation subsplits. Then you can subsplit the data set for the validation part. For example, you want to subsplit it into 1 only, or you can increase it more up to 5. If you make it 5, and if you make this epoch is equal to 20, then you will get an accuracy of around 95%. Then here we are just defining the validation steps. So we are splitting this test data set, and we are putting those images into this validation steps. Then this variable model history. Once we train the model, we get the history about the model. And if you want to look at the history, such as what are the validation score or the training score, you can always call this model history, and this model history variable will display you the history of the model that you have developed. And then once you make prediction on this model, you will get this predicted output. So this is the input image, this is the true mask, and this is the predicted mask for this dog image. So once you do that, you will get the predictions here. And here you will see I have run this model earlier, and I got the accuracy of 80%. Validation loss is 45%, and the validation accuracy is 82%. So here I need to increase the number of epochs and the validation subsplits. If I make it 20 or 25, and if I make this 5 or 10, I will get a better accuracy of, let's say, 95 to 99%. If you run this notebook, just make sure you are increasing the number of epochs and also splits, but it will also take time, I guess 1 to 2 hours to train this model, but your accuracy will increase. Then we have loss. Loss is nothing but the penalty for a bad prediction. So that is loss. It is a number. So you will get a number, and that how bad the model's prediction was on a given single example. So if the model's prediction is perfect, the loss will be 0. And if it is not good, then the loss will increase. So you always try to make sure loss is always as close as to 0. It can be 0, 1, 2, 10, 20. It can be anything to get it as close. Then your model prediction will be very good. Then this function is to calculate the loss and loss on the training and the validation, because we are splitting this training data into this validation also. And we want to check how the loss is performing, what is the loss in the training data set as well as in the validation data set. So we can also put that here. And here I have some problem with this loss because I think I have not run this loss function properly last time. So here you will get the loss and the training loss and the validation loss here. And then you can see how your training and validation loss is increasing. So you will have the epoch here. For example, you have, yes, because here my epoch is 1 only. You will see epoch is 1. And for the purpose of this tutorial, because it was taking a lot of time to train this model, so I made it 1. You have to make it actually more than 5 so that you will get a better chart here. So you will get here on epoch on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, you will have this loss value. So you will see that as your epoch will increase, your loss will go down. So you can try that on your own. You just have to change the number there. Then we can make predictions. And once you make prediction, we will use this function show under prediction to look at the predictions. And for example, here, we are looking at the 5 prediction that is made by this model. So first, our input image, this was the input image, and this was the true mass. And this is the predicted mass for this label true mass. And you will see that it is very close to the actual mass. And because we are interested in this, in classifying the pixels here, so it will only predict pixels here, not the actual image. This is for the first one. Then if you look at the second image, this is the true mass and this is the predicted mass. This is also very close to the true mass. Then we have this for the third image. This is the actual image. This is the true mass and this is the predicted mass. Here also we are getting good prediction. Here we are just getting some outliers also. Then this is for the next image. This is the true mass and this is the predicted mass. And this is for the fifth one. This is the true image. This is the input image. We have this true mass here, and this is the predicted mass. So these are the predictions that we have made on this image segmentation model. So this is how you can do all these image segmentation tasks in Python using this U-Net architecture. This is what I was demonstrating about. Now, if you have any questions, you can ask me. So this mass, we can get it using the function. There I'm defining a function. I'll show you.
Hello, Amir. Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Could you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning. I have one question regarding true mask. So where does this original true mask come from? I mean, it's manually segmented by Ali. We have to really manually give it some true mask, or is kind of just about the true mask?
Yeah, so in this data set, you will get the true mask automatically because this data set has true mask. But if you have your own data set, you are working on the custom data set, then you can create one function, and that function will help you to generate a true mask for your input images.
Okay. As far as I see, the final results of the prediction is somehow not very close to the true mask. There's a noise. There's a noise outside. Outside, for example, the background area. Is there any method that can filter out this noise? Or
yes. Yeah. So the reason is, while training the model, because it takes a lot of time to train. So I have used epochs is equal to 1, and this validation subspace is 1. And here you will see the model accuracy is just 80%. If you increase this number of epoch to, let's say, 20 or 25, your model accuracy will go up to 95%. And if you see the actual model developed on this image, it goes up to 95%. And when you have a 95 accuracy for your model, you will not see all this noise here. You will see a very little noise, maybe 1 or 2 dots here. And this noise I am getting because I have used very small epoch, just 1. So to get a good predicted mask, you have to just increase the number of epochs and the validation subsplit, and you will get a very good accuracy on this model.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else having any questions? You can ask me any question because I am done with this tech tutorial. I've completed it. I just want to check if the DSC Tech Tutorial host is online.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. So I'm done with this tutorial.
You're finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a second. Hello?
Hello?
Oh, yeah, okay. So you're finished then. That's it? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. To the attendees, you have a break, I guess, until 12 p.m. There are other tutorials. If you've applied for them, the next one on this meeting will be data visualization in Python by Josip Shaban. He is a solution manager at Erste Digital. So if you've applied or not, you can attend